So I just finished up with my client. This is how much money I made doing FS. I was with him for 1 hour and that is enough. Like, I am so drained. He was just one of those clients that wanted to make the most out of the booking. Super annoying. I really don't like those clients.
Yo, what is going on, guys? Got a video for you here today from Alexander Grace, and I don't really have a better way to really introduce this video. I don't have anything prepared to say other than this is absolutely unacceptable and it's disgusting. Okay, let's jump right into the video. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments because this is crazy.
I just got railed by 583 guys in 6 hours. I was aiming for 200. So I was so shocked when so many people rocked up. That was honestly the best day of my life.
Why would a woman do that? I'll show you.
So I just finished up with my client. This is how much money I made doing FS. I was with him for 1 hour and that is enough. Like, I am so drained. He was just one of those clients that wanted to make the most out of the booking. Super annoying. I really don't like those clients. Let's see how much money I made. So 2,200 and then he did pay 300 deposit. So 2,500 for 1 hour's work.
World's oldest profession. It's about the money. If you go onto TikTok, you'll see that there is a whole genre of videos normalizing this. Women's empowerment. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And the comment section is the usual spectrum of, oh my God, so disgusting. You go girl, get that bag. But one of the most interesting reactions I've seen to this kind of content is men saying, this is the end of civilization. This will cause societal collapse. The West is falling. And I find that really interesting. I've seen it over and over again in my own comment section. Men saying that there is a link between female promiscuity and degeneracy and the end of civilization.
I mean, of course there is, right? Because when this kind of crap becomes mainstream, when every single one of these women on TikTok just hates men and she's incredibly empowered and she goes out there and hooks up with, you know, hundreds of dudes, what ends up happening is you break down the family unit. Guys, I've said on this channel many times, okay? The women over on TikTok, many of the videos that I cover here on this channel, you can't date these women. You can't marry these women. And if you want to go and try, I mean, be my guest, but you're essentially asking to ruin your own life. So how is a society expected to function when we can't even, you know, retain our populace, essentially? Like, how are you going to maintain the birth rate and keep the society going? You can't have, unless you're going to import a bunch of people, which of course is happening all around the world in Western countries, but I digress. It's not looking good.
Like they can just feel it at a gut level. And you know what? There might actually be something to it. Have you ever heard of the book Sex and Culture by J.D. Unwin? He was a British anthropologist and he did a sweeping cross-cultural analysis of 86 different civilizations because he wanted to find out if there was a link between culturally enforced sexual restraint for women and that culture thriving. And the answer is yes. Without exception, cultures that regulated female sexuality thrived and those that didn't failed. I only learned about this book by reading a blog post. The post had really interesting data and graphs. I'm going to be sharing them in this video, but full credit to the author. I'm going to link to his post down below if you want to read it for yourself. But what he did is he took Unwin's work, which was published in the 1930s, decades before the sexual revolution in the West. He took Unwin's theory of civilizational collapse and he applies it to the modern era. And the data makes a devastating case. The short version being that the reason that the West is in decline is because female sexuality is out of control. Sounds far-fetched? Well, watch the video. Tell me what you think at the end. Now, it's important to know that Unwin himself was in favor of regulating the sexual expression of both men and women. He would probably criticize both this woman and the 583 guys who slept with her. But
I mean, I think anyone with common sense would do the same thing. Okay, they would probably condemn the behavior of both the men and the women in this situation. Which, by the way, you know, again, I would do the same. I don't think men should be out here getting with women like this. I think it's incredibly dangerous. You're probably going to catch some sort of a disease or something. Like, you don't even know where the hell this woman has been. And if you do, I mean, it's probably nowhere damn good. Okay?
Putting his personal discernment aside, his findings demonstrated that it was the strict regulation of female sexuality that indicated whether or not society took sexual discipline as a whole seriously. And it's pretty obvious that in the modern age, the West does not.
The sluttiest thing I've ever done. I this one guy one night and then his best friend the other night. Bye!
Okay, let's explain Unwin's basic theory. Here it is.
Before we jump into this, guys, I just want to outline one of the reasons why this might be the case. And what I'm talking about here is men not being suppressed in this way as much. And the reason why is simply because men are not as powerful in this domain. Everybody knows, okay, you as a man, if you want to get married or if you want to compete in the dating market, it's going to be a very big competition for you. Okay, you're going against dudes who make a lot of money, who are incredibly jacked, who are on substances. Like, for men, dating is a brutal competition, and the women do not care if you are at the bottom. Okay, that's why regulation is less important for men, is because it's inherently regulated. There is competition. It is difficult. Many men don't end up reproducing. And again, if you're at the bottom of the totem pole, nobody really cares about you. Contrast that to women, guys. You can have an average woman and she has an incredible amount of power in the dating market. Now, many of them can't use it, okay? And I would sit here and roast women for multiple minutes on that, but let's just suffice to say they're very bad at using it. Let's continue.
Humans possess finite social and creative energy. It's not unlimited. Now, in a sexually liberated environment, all of that energy gets channeled into sexual exploration and indulgence. And while it might be personally gratifying to that individual, it ultimately doesn't lead the culture anywhere. By contrast, in a sexually restrained society, all of that creative social energy, that gets channeled into productive endeavors. Invention, art, governance, exploration. It's like the culture-wide application of the NoFap movement. Guys who say that not pleasuring themselves makes them more productive. But why? How does this work? What specifically is the link between sexual restraint and a productive society? Why does civilization collapse without that restraint? And is that what we're going through? I want to start by using evidence from the West that demonstrates why granting sexual freedom to women does lead to cultural collapse. First of all, there is going to be a lack of long-term investment from men.
I mean, this is funny to me, guys, because it's so obvious, but this is something that modern women just don't understand. Like, how many videos have we seen, okay, of women sitting there and they're like, wow, you know, I had a great time with this guy last Friday, but I don't know why he didn't follow up and want another date with me. It's because the men don't think, rightfully so, mind you, that there is anything of substance there. They don't want to get to know you. They don't want a relationship with you. They don't want to marry you. And the reason for that is because many of these women, you can't do those things, like I said at the start of the video, without essentially ruining your life. If you think you're going to go out there and marry some woman that you met out on the clubs, which many of them do attend, mind you, then your life is, you're essentially just asking for your life to be significantly more difficult than it has to be. So of course the men are going to walk away. I just laugh every time I see that because I think back to the women just not understanding why that's the case. Let's continue.
Second, the unfolding of selection theory. And third, the feminization of that culture. Why is there this link between the lack of female sexual restraint and the collapse of a civilization? First reason, there is a lack of long-term investment from men. Understand that paternity tests with DNA are a very recent invention. The ancient way of guaranteeing paternity certainty was to just keep a really close eye on your woman. The cultures would very strictly police female sexuality, making sure they're virgins on their wedding night, that they don't spend alone time with other men, that a marriage is only considered legitimate if it has been consummated. Seriously, if you look at anthropological records, you'll see that tribes and cultures across the world have very strictly policed female sexual expression. And I'm not saying that that's not problematic. Often completely innocent women's freedoms were hugely controlled and restricted out of, paranoia. And you can blame and shame, cavemen for doing that if you want. But I think the lesson from that is that we need to take the need for paternity certainty very seriously.
Okay, here's the thing. It's not paranoia, right? Like, this is not paranoia. This is just common sense. If you have a wife, if you have a girlfriend, and she wants to hang out with her guy best friends, the answer is no. Okay? Don't care. Like, the answer is, you know what? I'll be serious for a second here. The answer is yes, and then you never see or talk to her again. Okay? Because number one, is massively disrespectful. And number two, why would you want to endanger your relationship or your marriage in that way in the first place? Okay, these women, this is what women try and convince you. They try and convince you, hey, don't worry, don't be insecure. You know, yeah, I have a lot of guy friends, but I really care about you. No, sorry, not dealing with it. Maybe some other guy who's clueless will put up with it. I'm not putting up with it. This is not insecurity. This is not, I forget the word that Alexander just used to describe this, but it's not that. Okay, it's just called common sense. And I wish more people understood this, guys. I really do. This is a really dangerous trap that a lot of guys fall into, is because they're brainwashed and they're told to believe this line of thinking that, oh, you don't want to impede on her freedoms, right? You don't want to be that type of a man. What about the type of woman who even needs to go out there and do those things in the first place? I shouldn't need to impede my wife or girlfriend from having girls' nights out at 10 p.m. on a Friday. It's not happening. Okay, like, like people always get mad at the men. Oh, you're impeding her freedoms. Okay, how about this? She shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Very, very simple.
You can't just ignore it and then shame men away. That's not going to work, because what they are trying to achieve is to make sure that men can be confident that the children that their female partner produce are his. That is extremely important, because it makes that man think about his descendants, makes him think about his legacy and want to leave something behind for his family to enjoy. It also makes him invested in the society because he wants his children to grow up in a functioning culture. My daughter is almost 5, and since she was born, this has definitely been the busiest period in my life. Raising children isn't necessarily easy, but at the same time, it's been the most productive era of my life ever. My focus is very long-term now. I think frequently about grandchildren and what I want to leave them when I'm gone. When you have children and you know that they're yours, your decision-making, your focus, your priorities, they're very different. And it brings out the best in men. The research shows that married men who have children, they significantly out-earn their peers with the same qualifications, but who don't have children.
Okay, I can see what Alexander is trying to say here, but it can really be dumbed down. It can really be, it's a lot more simple than this. Men want to make sure that their kids are theirs because they don't want to be cucks. It's as simple as that, guys. You know, I mean, Alexander is wording it in a more polite way that a lot more women are likely to agree with, because, you know, we're talking about money here. Oh, if I have his kid, he'll earn more money. Maybe I won't cheat. Maybe I won't cheat on him. You know, but it's just way more simple than this. Okay, men want to make sure that their kids are theirs. Why? Because it's human nature. It's very, very simple. No man wants to raise children that are not his own, and I don't blame men for that. I'm the same way. I am not raising a kid that is not my own. I'm not having a relationship with a single mother. Okay, I'm not doing any of this. Oh, I won't take this DNA test. You should trust me. Hell no. Absolutely not. I believe it's France. I've mentioned this a few times. I think it's France that refuses to disclose or allow DNA tests. Correct me if I always get that mixed up, but you know, these things are a danger to these countries because they don't want men walking away in mass after realizing just how many women commit paternity fraud. It is disgusting, men.
You would think that not having children is a smart financial move, and yet the statistics show that having children, those men, they end up with more money at retirement. It is really important for a culture that the men are thinking long term. It brings out the best in them. If you live in a society with sexual promiscuity and there's very little faith that the children born are going to be the biological children of the man who thinks that he's the father, then he stops thinking in a long-term way. His mind starts to focus more on short-term pleasures and random hookups. Marriage and children are proven, stable building blocks that enable long-term thinking. And sadly, both of them have been in decline since the sexual liberation movement. Look at this graph and look at how the median age of marriage has just shot up in the recent decades. It used to be that in your early and mid 20s, you think, okay, I'm a fully grown adult now. I've got to start making responsible choices. I've got to start thinking about my future, planning for the long term. But in the modern age, it's like we've added an extra 10 years on to childhood, and people don't start to think that seriously until they're in their 30s.
So this chart is actually absolutely hilarious, because what's happening here is women are deciding, oh, don't worry, I can just have children later in life. Okay, I'm just going to push it back. I have all the time in the world. I have nothing to worry about. I'm just going to have kids. And you can see, right, the chart goes up to here, because this is where the women start to really panic. Okay, they start to go, oh, wait a minute, I need to have kids now. I don't biologically have any more time. This is a reality. You guys see what I'm saying? Like, of course, it ends up just around the 30 mark, because after 30, of course, the odds of being able to have children, especially women, decreases significantly. So what's happening here? Women are spending their 20s screwing around and then trying to get married as they go into their 30s and then have kids within a couple of years and tie the bow on that whole situation of their life. I think this is an absolute scam for men, by the way. Many men work incredibly hard until they're like 33, okay? As you can see in this chart, by the way, up here, like 33. And then you'll get women who are like, yeah, I'm ready to have a family now. You know, and you'll get those hey stranger messages, and women will start to reach out to you again and try and have a relationship or something serious with you, when oftentimes they never cared about these men all throughout their 20s. It is insanely disgusting. It's a complete scam for men. It really is. You know, you get these women who are like 29 and they're like, I'm ready for something serious now. That's nice. Hit the road. Lovely stuff.
As well as having implications on that person's personal life, it's also just not good for the culture for people to have essentially 10 years where they're less productive. There's also a growing number of people who just never get married. Look at the number of people getting married. Look how the numbers just go down and down and down. It's not good. If you want men to invest in the future and think long term, you need to give them something tangible and solid to invest in. You need to incentivize them to care, to have a stake in it. I don't care what feminists are trying to brand it off as now, just like men's paranoia or insecurity. I don't care. The fact is, paternity certainty is essential. I've been saying this on the channel for years. We need to have mandatory paternity tests done at birth.
Ooh, they're not going to like that one. They're not going to like that one, Alexander. You terrible, terrible man. You must not like women. What's that? You want to make sure that your children are actually biologically yours? You are a terrible man. Now, obviously, I'm joking here, okay? Because Alexander is talking some sense. And this is something I agree with. This is something that I have mentioned on the channel many times. And the thing is, I don't even think you need to make them mandatory. I think you just make them default. And then if your woman tries to say, actually, no, can we not do the paternity test? Then I think that tells you everything you need to know. But in any case, mandatory DNA tests, I certainly would not be against the idea. I think it's fantastic. I think if I had the choice between not implementing it and implementing it, absolutely mandatory DNA tests. And you know what would happen? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, there would be a bit of an uproar. You know why? Because all of the men who are still asleep to this stuff would realize just how much women are scamming them, just how many children are out there who are actually not being raised by their biological fathers. It would, guys, I guarantee you, it would shock even the dudes who are perhaps aware of this sort of stuff. I think even these men would probably be shocked by just how high these statistics would be. And of course, what are the women going to say? Well, the women are going to come out and they're going to say, well, you just don't like women. You're just insecure. Yeah, that doesn't really work anymore. Okay? You can keep throwing out the language. Men are just going to ignore you. I think paternity tests would be a great thing. Well said, Alexander, in my opinion.
You do that and it will make a huge difference. The second reason I want to talk about is selection theory. Now, in a society with a lot of sexual restraint, you're going to find that women are long-term in their thinking. They know they want a man who's going to be stable, kind, and reliable because he's going to be the father of her children. He might be a bit more boring and less exciting, but he's solid and dependable. In a society with sexual freedom and no restraint, women are obviously going to be more short-term in their thinking and just chasing the kind of sexual gratification that comes from, hookups with hot bad boys. They're not thinking about whether or not he comes from a good family, whether or not he's kind and loyal. No, is he exciting? Does he have big muscles? Has he got a big Instagram following? The black pill guys who say that women focus on looks way more than we've thought, they're not crazy. I don't think it's always been this way that women were so looks focused, but certainly in recent decades, it's become so much more important to women how a man looks. Because
I mean, here's the thing as well, right? People aren't going to like this one, but, Alexander makes the point here that previously women would look for men who were nice, who would care about them, who would treat them well. Guys, look at the dating history of your average modern woman. They will actively choose men that treat them like crap, that don't reply to their messages, who ignore them, who say mean things to them, who just have their fun and then leave. Okay, and then these very same women, when they hit 30, they're trying to convince you to be a nice man. I mean, they're trying to convince you to be a nice man the whole way. But a lot of modern day women do not actually respond positively to nice men. For example, let's just say you go on a date with a woman in today's day and age, okay, your average woman. I'm not even going to say college educated, quote unquote, whatever the hell that means nowadays, okay? You go on an average date with an average woman these days, try showing up with flowers on the first date and see how that goes for you. A lot of these women will think that you're a freak, guys. And I don't have any pleasure saying that. I think a lot of men would love to be chivalrous, would love to provide for women, have families and marriages and so on. But men are actually treated like crap when they put in effort into modern women oftentimes. You want to be that nice guy, you want to be that chivalrous guy. I mean, I think we all know how women treat men who treat women like that. And that's really sad, right? That's sad for the men who want to put effort into their wives and girlfriends and so on. And that's really sad for the women who end up at 35 and their only option is a bunch of cats. Poor things. Let's continue.
Because if all you're looking for is some short-term gratification with a random hookup, that's what's important. Is he hot? And so with social media and like the dating apps that you swipe, looks have just gotten more and more important. But a man's appearance, that doesn't speak to how good of a partner he's going to be in the long term. That's not going to do anything for a productive society. We're focusing on the wrong things. And it didn't used to be that way. Way back in the day, if you wanted to marry a woman, you didn't even need to convince her. You needed to convince her dad. And obviously you're not going to be like strutting about and posing and like showing the dad how good looking you are. No, the qualities that you're going to emphasize: I am reliable, I can provide, I can protect, I will treat your daughter well. This is what dad is looking for. He doesn't care if you're ugly. The focus away from the long term to the short term has meant that it's a lot easier for narcissists to get their foot in the door. If the community and your parents are scrutinizing a man for marriage, it's going to be a pretty intense process. It's going to be hard to fool everybody. But if all that's happening is that you've got to convince her when she's out at the club and she's a bit inebriated that you're a charming guy who can give her a good time, that's way easier for him to sleaze his way into her life, which
Again, I think Alexander is putting this in a very nice and eloquent way, but I'll just come out and say it in more simple terms. Women are very bad at choosing their significant others. Okay, they are absolutely shocking at it. You know who is good at choosing significant others for their daughters? The fathers. The fathers are absolutely fantastic, generally speaking, right, at choosing significant others for their daughters. And for their sons too, probably, honestly. Okay, fathers have good judgment. Why? Because that's their bloodline. That is their legacy. They have a vested interest in making sure that it works out. Many of these women, guys, are just absolutely clueless. Again, you look at their dating history, they have no clue what they're doing. They are terrible at choosing men. And again, they're not sorting for these good qualities. They're not sorting for qualities. Hey, has he got good morals? Is he going to care about me? Is he going to stay around long term? They don't look at these things. They just look at the, like Alexander says, they look at the muscles. Is he charming? That's enough.
Of course, gives her bad experiences with men, which makes her bitter and less enthusiastic about dating. And of course, because of her sexual history, fewer and fewer men want to commit to her out of fear of this paternity certainty. So you have the predictable consequence that the marriage rates continue to drop. This graph is terrifying. Look, this starts at 1990. This is not a huge span of time, but
This is hilarious. I'm surprised it's not even more severe, to be honest with you. I'm surprised any men these days want to get married. Marriage rate in the United States, 1990 to 2018. I'd be very interested to see 2015. Okay, I'm surprised the statistics are not even worse, to be honest with you.
But look at the number falling. We do not want a society where a few narcissistic men are fathering children all over town. That's not good for children. Children need to know their fathers. The statistics on children who are born without a dad in the home are devastating, far more likely to drop out of high school, to start committing crimes. For children to thrive, they need stability and predictability. Marriage provides that. And if women choose for long-term partnership traits, it also provides them with a solid role model of actual masculinity. What I'm trying
Let's be honest here, by the way, guys. Okay, this is the argument that I see a lot of people put forward in general, is like, oh, all of these men, all of these chads, they're just ditching their children, right? When in actual fact, yes, there are deadbeat dads who don't care about their kids. I'm not denying that. But also, let's be real about it. A lot of the time, the women, even if they do have kids with a good man, even if they do get married to a good man, they are abandoning him. Okay? They are allowed to initiate no-fault divorces. They can leave at any time and try and take the kids, and they are incentivized to do so in order to get child support. So it's very well and good to say, well, these chads are just having all of the kids. But here's the thing, guys. Again, even if these women do, quote unquote, settle down at 30, marriages aren't lasting as long. A lot of the women are leaving because they feel like it and because they know they can get rewarded. Guys, I'm going to be leaving today's video there. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you all in the next one. Peace.